have kind of a scary story to share with you. Kind of a ghost story, actually, a spiritual story. Last week, I was visiting my mom in Florida. The Epstein files were released, and the whole world started reading through or trying to read through these documents. My mom and I were reading some and wanted to verify them, so I got online, went to the correct website, and started looking at how many files there were. So then I started trying to sort through them to see if I could verify some of the things that were being reported on. I had this distinct impression to close my laptop and not to look through the files. And that in fact, if I did look through the files, that it would really affect my mental and emotional well-being. So I didn't do it. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but oftentimes in the morning is when I receive information from the spirit. Sometimes it's when I first open my eyes, actually. So the next morning, I opened my eyes and there was this distinct impression that the information that was coming through was, in fact, too much information for most people to be able to handle. It's not about intelligence, it's about being overloaded and what that does to the mind, what that does to the spirit, and what that does to the body, the nervous system, and how important it is that we protect what it is that goes into our minds. Because once thoughts and images are in our minds, that's where, if it's hard for our nervous systems to process, it can become ruminations and intrusive thoughts, a cyclical shocking of the nervous system, if you will. It can actually create quite a bit of disturbance in most people. And if you don't have the proper support, professional support to process it all, it can really impact a person's well being. I had the distinct impression that this evil that has been unleashed or let out to society is nothing new, that these kinds of evils have been going on forever, and that it is playing out differently now because we have access to so much information, where before people didn't really have access to it. However, humanity has always known that there has been deep corruption. We've always known that things like this exist. We just might not have known exactly the scale of it. I had the distinct impression that this amount of evil being fed into the minds and the hearts of the children of men might be kind of a next wave in general emotional mental breakdown among society. In other words, there are things that happen that traumatize society in general. 2019 to 2022, 23, we all saw what happened to society, and that many people from that experience have PTSD or different types of trauma. I see it a lot in my work. A lot of people really were triggered and impacted at that time and are recovering from it. So what I got from the spirit was that this is going to be traumatizing a lot of people, because a lot of people are reading the documents. They're also creating false documents. There's a lot of thoughts, images that are being put into the minds of people, and most people actually do not have the proper support to process that all. Also, there are people that are already traumatized, and now taking in all this information is just triggering them. So basically creating an increase of dis-ease across society. I felt really sad about it. I read my scriptures after that. I sat with it, prayed about it. I had this distinct impression to pray for the protection of my family and friends. I just started thinking of names, right? That they would not fall under the control of the adversary. It just became really clear in my mind that this is spiritual warfare. That while it's important for us to know that these things are going on, that there is also the element of wanting to protect our minds, like be really careful about what we allow in. Like, we can be aware of the corruption, but we don't need to put those images those experiences in our own minds and become traumatized by them, because then we're no good. Then it's all chaos. And if we want to see anything get done, we need to follow the steps that have always worked throughout history to get things done. The other thing that came to me was that because there's so much information that people's minds can't process it all, they feel overwhelmed and like there's just nothing that they can do. And it became very clear to me that that's not true, but that in society, that's what's going to start happening. People are going to be shutting down because they're overwhelmed. Now, in the school of Kundalini Yoga, we learn about this Aquarian age that we're going into. And that during the Aquarian age, there's going to be this increase of information, and that there will be so much information that, in fact, it will overwhelm the minds and the hearts and the spirits of our brothers and sisters. And that practices that where people learn how to direct their mind and build their spirits are going to be vital. Otherwise, people will be lost in the waves of their minds. The waves of their minds will start to dominate how their nervous system is functioning. And essentially, then their spirit will be taken on a ride of the mind and the nervous system. That was something that I thought a lot about. And that's my work, right? My work is to help people learn how to lead with their spirits and to teach their mind and their nervous system to bend to the will of the spirit over and over and over again until it becomes just a strong muscle memory to overcome anxiety, intrusive thoughts, ruminations, depression, fear, sadness, stuckness, and to build the frontal cortex. I mean, you guys, cortisol, when the amygdala starts firing and it dumps cortisol, it removes blood from the frontal and prefrontal cortex. It sends it to the back of the brain. And over time, that atrophies the prefrontal and frontal cortex. That's where your rational thinking comes from. That's where your regulated emotions. You need all of this developed in order to be regulated. But if you're constantly experiencing trauma, stress, fear, it's going to dump a lot of cortisol in your body. If you're a female, that cortisol is going to eat at your estrogen. Ladies, you have estrogen receptors in your brain. It's how your brain fires and functions properly. If you don't have the right amount of estrogen in your system and you have high levels of cortisol, you're going to struggle with your neurons firing well. It all plays together. So I'm sitting in the car with my mom, and you know what? It's becoming very clear to me that this is spiritual warfare, that my brothers and sisters are under attack, not only from reading all of this, being traumatized by it, but also all of our brothers and sisters that have been victims of it. And not just of the things that have been released, but just everything that we see, everything that's going on, the wars, the hunger, the deep struggle. I mean, even like, let's just take it down to basics. People worried about paying their bills. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that I have a heavenly Father. I believe that there is a plan and a purpose for our souls choosing to come and be here, and that we are getting an education, and that this is temporary. And I thought to myself, why on earth would the adversary continue to do this if he knows that he cannot win? And I said that to my mom, and she said, to hurt us, to try and prevent us from growing and becoming what we could otherwise be. That night, I went to bed and I felt kind of uncomfortable in my room. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I had the distinct feeling that something was in my room in the dark. And it felt like it was right there. And I'm gonna spare you guys the details, but something significant happened that was terrifying for me, and I screamed and grabbed my pillow and was swinging it, calling for my mom to come and help me. And my mom ran in the room and held my hand, and I've thought a lot about what to say and how to say it to you all because I know how important it is to share truth. And I want you all to know that that which doth not edify is not of God and is of darkness. And the scripture goes on to say, and I tell you these things that you may chase darkness from among you. I want you to know that prayer is really powerful and that there are things that we can do, active things that we can do, like organizing and gathering people to go to meet with senators and representatives, to keep knocking on their office doors, keep pushing, that actually get things done. I've seen it before. I've participated in things like that before, and we did get things done. It's not all hopeless, but it does take a lot of work. And in the meantime, I just want to inspire you all or share with you all that you do not need to know the details of all the evil. You don't, in order to understand that evil is happening. Remember, once something is in your mind, it kind of becomes the devil's playground. I was raised LDS, and we have this thing where we don't watch rated R movies. And it's just for that very reason, so that things don't go into our minds that just play and replay and replay and replay and create fear and anger or perversions or obsessions, right? You need to be healthy and strong for your family. You need to be clear in your mind and in your heart for your family and for your loved ones so that you can be effective in whichever way it is you choose to move forward. And I want to share with you guys that anger and fear only causes dysregulation, not just in the mind, but also in the spirit. It prevents us from getting into a place where we can regulate our thoughts and emotions, where we can see the greater perspective. In other words, fear creates a myopic viewpoint, really narrow focused. It's hard to see all the different ways to solve problems when we're coming from that state. I want you to know that breathing in through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, nice and slow, into your belly for 90 seconds will turn down your amygdala and it will stop cortisol from rushing through your body. And if you can do that and just breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth for 90 seconds and allow your body to experience whatever feelings it's having, it will quiet down. I want to invite you to do that every time you notice that you're becoming dysregulated or angry. I also want you to know that prayer is powerful. And I want you to know that spiritual warfare is real. In Kundalini Yoga, we do talk about the spirit. We do talk about our energy fields. We talk about how they can become affected. In fact, Kundalini yogis often wrap their hair in white. It's to protect the crown chakra, it's to protect the hair. These are our antennas. It's to protect us from outside energies so that we can remain neutral, especially as teachers, so that we can show up for our students as best as we can. We do what we can to protect ourselves so that we can do our work. And I want to invite all of you to do that for yourself as well. I want to tell you that things are going to get darker. It's been prophesied in the scriptures. It's been prophesied by spiritual practices, religions all around the world, that things will be getting harder. And it is important that we do all we can to build ourselves spiritually and to take care of our minds and our hearts, to be wise about what information we take in. And then if you want to get involved in ways that are going to be effective. Do all you can to come from a place of peace not just for everybody else, but for your own soul, for your own well being. There was something that I was working on, and I was up at the Capitol all the time working with an organization. And I experienced a lot of fear and anger because of some things that were happening. What happened as a result is I got really snappy with my family. I started getting anxiety. I wasn't really emotionally available for others. And I actually got an ulcer. I started having this incredible stomach pain, and I had to go in for an endoscopy. And then I wasn't able to eat anything but oatmeal for like 3 months. Right? It's real. It really does affect us. And if we aren't strong, then we can't be effective to help. We're not going to be effective to help anybody. I don't really know what else to say right now in this moment. I don't like to write things out and have scripts. And so I'm sure there are some things that I've forgotten to mention. And I'll make a follow up video to it. Um, but for now, remember, as the world ramps up, it becomes that much more important for us to uplift our minds, uplift our spirits, and take really good care of our nervous systems so that we can be as effective as we possibly can, not just for society in general, but also for our families. All right. I love you all. Take really good care.